Hey, welcome to the Do Good Work podcast. Today, we're talking to Martin MacArthur. Martin is the Outbound Sales Guy. And if you're not following him on social media, you don't know that at the age of 7, he was diagnosed with juvenile retinitis pigmentosa, which just causes a slow loss of vision. But since then, he's helped companies for about 15 years fill their top of funnel as an SDR. And in 2020, he recently decided to launch his own agency, and he is on a mission to positively impact every single person he comes in contact with. And I'm excited to have him on the pod to share a little bit more about his journey, his story, talk the real, the raw, but then also build out an outreach strategy or give you a high level of an outreach strategy so that you can learn some of the tactics and see what happens behind the scenes of outbound sales. Martin, finally have you on. How you doing?
I am doing well. It's a pleasure to be here, my man.
I'm excited, man. So I'm having a lot of conversations in the pod, outside the pod. And what I'm finding, even for myself, is to hear and to listen to others' stories as they journey. Because sometimes we see it on the top of the podcast charts or the books that we read of people who are maybe 100, maybe even 1,000 steps ahead of us. And I sometimes just want to hear everyone else's like their own success story. Who are they becoming? Who are they journeying to be? What are they working towards? And not to play a comparison game, but to more of like inspiration for the seasons of losses, the seasons of gains, the seasons of transitions if you're transitioning from a new role to another project, whatever. So I'd really just want to highlight and get to know a little bit more about your story and your journey, Martin. What got you to focusing on outbound sales, and how are you doing this for 15 years?
That's a great question, great segue because it wasn't really something that I was looking to do or kind of looking for. It by more of a happen chance, if you will. So I was just having really a challenge finding anything, any kind of employment. And there was this opportunity, a very small company, fairly new in the area, looking for, and the keyword that they used was telemarketing.
Mm,
And the details were very clear, very concise, very short. It was to use a script that they have come up with and call realtors in the area to talk to them about their voice over IP needs. It didn't seem that complicated. And then from there, it just evolved from wanting more training, wanting more income, which led me to managed IT service provider, and then onward into the outbound sales development as a service arena, if you will, with a couple of different agencies. After being with one that was funded and unfortunately no longer around, I was working on my brand and personal brand and just really diving into LinkedIn, and I had at the back of my mind, what could I be doing? What can I do? I can't. Why should I have to rely on someone else to help
mm,
get me employed or help me find employment, generate income, what have you? And decided to go all in and go on my invest in myself and my years of knowledge, expertise, and see if I couldn't perhaps make it work. And 2 years later, as a solo entrepreneur of a company, I'm still trying to figure it out and make it work. But it's been very interesting, very educational, that's for sure.
definitely a process. And I think that what you mentioned earlier was, I want to dive into that a little bit around
Hmm.
focusing on investing in yourself and identifying like the skill sets that you've developed over the years, but then also building that bridge to transition over, building that bridge to go out on your own and to figure things out. What's some of the key lessons that you're learning right now on the journey? What are the key highlights that you maybe a theme that you encounter in the seasons and off the seasons?
Yeah, the biggest challenge for me has been being overwhelmed
Mm,
with trying to do everything on your own. So like when you are the only person in the company, you're responsible for everything from coming up with business plan, coming up with the messaging, the marketing, the sales, the financing, who to go out target to, having sales conversations. There's an awful lot that can overwhelm you. And then if you start to get clients, so about a year, I guess it was last February, March timeframe,
mhm.
I had three or four, I can't remember exactly, clients. And I felt like I was drowning because I could not keep up with everything. And I couldn't bring someone on because that's more money out and not enough coming in and all these other things. And it was just like, holy cow, I was starting to feel very overwhelmed and starting to drown. And I didn't give up, but I was like, why do I want to keep on doing this? Which led to me taking a long pause, really evaluating and questioning, is this
Mhm.
something I want to keep doing? If so, is there things I could be doing better? Which there were, like better prioritization, better like keeping track of tasks and time schedules, etc. That's the biggest thing for me, was being overwhelmed and then not letting that overwhelm like balloon into, okay, I'm into quitting, or this is no longer something I want to do.
I feel like we sometimes have that a lot, the ups and the downs, the feasts and the famines, and I forgot there was like a pretty popular image on LinkedIn around like the life cycle of an entrepreneur. There's highs, there's lows, and there's you curling the ball. Like all the emotions happen. The best explanation I heard was that when the winds in entrepreneurship, everything is amplified.
Mhm.
When the winds come, they feel like the best in the world, and then when there's a freeze or there's difficulty, you feel it at a higher scale. So
Yep.
every emotion is amplified. But it sounds to
And,
me like
and
you.
and to your point at the top, like you don't want to compare yourself to other people that are in similar spaces as you are, or similar fields, or similar titles, what have you. But you look at those folks and they're not boasting, but like they're recognizing the success that they're having and they're sharing that success. And then you're like, well, what are they doing different, or what are they doing better than I am? Where I feel like I'm working my butt off and I'm not getting ahead. So you have that little bit of noise rattling around in your head as well.
Yeah, no, I hear you. So it sounds like after you came from the back from the pause, what changed and what are you changing and implementing?
Yeah, the biggest change was recognizing, who do I really want to work with, and really crystallizing types of people, not companies, not offerings, products, services, but actual people to
Mm.
work with, and the personalities. Because
Oh, that's it.
at the end of the day, it's a relationship, right?
Mhm.
It should be a relationship and not a transaction. And if we don't have to be best friends, but if I don't feel like we're equal, or that there's respect, mutual respect, decency, compassion, all these other things, then you're probably not someone that I really want to be working with. And that's something that I didn't take into consideration before. Definitely something I am now. And then also just getting some help with those day-to-day tasks
Mhm.
and activities. I recently joined as I was mentioned to you before we came on air, I partnered with another sales development agency who's a little bigger and is able to support with some of the infrastructure and some of the activities, so that it's not such a, so I'm not feeling like I was saying, a little
It's all on
overwhelmed.
you. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Get
So
leverage.
yeah,
Dude,
exactly.
those are two of the most important things. So I'll be fully transparent. I was on a consult this morning helping a team and they were experiencing like people issues, right? One of the things that I find a lot, even like looking at the employer standpoint, so you run a team and you have your own team, is that in the beginning, you're usually hiring to pull in people through function. You need someone to do X, Y, and Z. So you just hire that person to do X, Y, and Z. You're hiring for the role, you're hiring for the function. But as you evolve as a business owner, as you evolve as a business, you hire based on values. You hire based on, are they aligned to the mission, to the values that we have, and do they have the right attitude? And I think that's such a key lesson that you just literally nailed in the beginning is like you looking for clients. It's also an audition for them to say, hey, am I going to have the shared values with the client? May not be best friends, but may not like talk for hours or go golf. Like you don't have to do that, but there has to be a mutual playing ground of respect and alignment on values. And that's a more seasoned approach, in my opinion, because in the beginning, I think everyone just wants to get clients for client's sake, which I get. There's cash flow and income, et cetera. But that is such a overlooked approach that I'm really appreciative that you mentioned. And second, you mentioned leverage, creating leverage that you don't have to do anything. You focus specifically on what you're best at. Let's dive into that a little bit right now. So when it comes to living, I don't want to butcher it. I'm not really in the SDR world as much, but when we're living that day to day, what are some of the things that you're seeing right now that are working or not working? What are some of the tactics or strategies that you're applying to make or to help teams and help them grow?
Yeah. One thing that seems to be popping up a lot lately in the last month or couple months anyways, maybe the last quarter, is a lot of talk around AI, artificial intelligence.
Oh yeah.
And is it going to eliminate or replace the SDR role?
Interesting.
I
How would it
well,
do that?
so it's not going to replace it fully. What I
Yeah.
think it will do is it will eliminate the mundane tasks that SDRs face today. So like list building, verify, validating, enriching contact records, creating messaging, sending out emails on, and we all get them, crappy emails.
Oh
So
yeah.
those functions I can, and then also like with CRM enrichment, a lot of that mundane data tasks, I think is where AI will take over. Where it's not going to take over is still initiating and generating a conversation. You still need to have a conversation with someone and, hey, what are you struggling with? What challenge do you have? Why do you have that challenge? What are you doing today to solve that challenge? This is what we can do to come in and help you eliminate that burden from you or help you solve this challenge. And I just don't see where AI right now can do that. Maybe in 5 years or 2
Maybe.
years, who knows? But
That's a creative approach, though. I think what you're saying is helping with the Monday day-to-day cycles. But when it comes to, I actually don't think AI will be at the point yet. Again, this is hypothetical
yeah,
around being creative because I know that's one of the key skill sets that are necessary in the future is to see different applications and build to solve those unique problems. And I think that'll definitely be the part of a human to say, hey, here's a new opportunity, aka new problem to solve. Let's have let's leverage the artificial intelligence to solve that new problem. But I'm not sure if the AI will on its own identify those new problems, at least from what I'm seeing so far. It might.
yeah. Maybe down the road, like what we certainly have experienced, right? Is like there's a ton of really smart, intelligent people that are working on these technologies and applications. So I wouldn't say never, but
It
who
could.
knows? It
Yeah.
could.
So there's that
So so there's that aspect, and then the other thing is the emphasis on messaging. Just the
mm,
people are really annoyed, and you can probably appreciate being a business owner getting really bombarded with terrible messaging, email, LinkedIn, spam messaging. So I think that is another area like where there's a lot of emphasis being placed right now is on how to craft messaging that's more articulate, but like just speaks like a human because
all the messages I get on my inbox and on LinkedIn. It's like I don't even respond. I think
no, just garbage. Like you just hit the delete button. But I've been using a tool called Reggie AI, and there's a couple other ones. One is Copy Factory AI, and it's a tool that just you plug. It's not taking over for you, but it's helping you. So you can put in a few various keywords that you use, or you can start writing a message or what have you, and then it
mm,
will come up with some recommendations of a body message that, would you like to use this one, two, three, or four, or just ignore them all and use your own kind of thing. But those are a couple of good tools that are either free or inexpensive that people can use and just help them craft that messaging that's not quite as
interesting.
crappy and spammy. And then lastly, the phone. A lot of people, there's been this huge debate about, is the phone dead? Is it still, does the phone work? And no one answers, no one's in the office, all this nonsense. But personally, for me, someone who is on the phone a lot throughout the day, it still works.
Mhm.
You just have to be persistent and have a process for following up. And there's better days for calling. Like for me, Tuesday, Thursday, and Fridays are really good days for calling.
Hmm,
So Monday and Wednesdays, I don't place as much emphasis on calling just because I know, especially Monday mornings, I'm not going to get a lot of conversations because people are busy getting things ready for the week. So
interesting.
those are the areas that
But
I'm
that's unique
noticing
to you.
traction.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's unique.
Yep.
But you know that. Do you wanna do a little challenge here? Like an interesting build it live? Do you wanna do a little challenge?
Yep. Good. Yeah.
I'd love to learn a little bit more about like the maybe the industries or the clients that you serve, but let's build a real outreach strategy, just like top of mind, 30,000-foot view, nothing too detailed. We're not gonna go down all the way to the actual messaging. That would be
Okay.
but I'd love to know how you think around about an outreach because let's just call it out. Like the name of the game right now is building a list, enriching that list by cleansing it. So you either have to take it to a data warehouse or use a lead to clean the
VA.
list. Yeah,
Yep.
use a VA or a data warehouse. So
Yep.
then you have a list, and then that list usually it's name, email, phone number, company name, LinkedIn profile. So that's usually what the list comprises of. You might have 1,000 people on that list. If what type of industries do you normally work with, or what type of clients? Are they
Um,
agencies? Are they service
uh,
providers?
I've been focusing a lot on software as a service,
Okay,
although that's a bit of a broad stroke. Now, I've also been talking, or at least considering maybe a different industry, but for right now, software as a service is where I've
main
played
hotspot.
for a long time. So that's
You
where I
know it.
know. Yeah. And then what the tool I'm using to gather my data, it's, I don't know if you care for name drops on the pod or not, but it's a apollo.io.
Mhm.
And what's really cool with that too is like it will show you what kind of funding the company's recently received, if any, what technologies they're using. So these are all valuable insights that can
You
help
can
you.
build custom messaging. So let's dive into that because I sometimes talk to people. How do I go from A to B? How do I go from a list to having a relationship build to having an actual new client onboarding? I'd love to know if we have this list of 1,000 people, how does your brain work? What do you see? What are the opportunities? What are the actions? And I think that could be a good takeaway for the listeners.
Yeah. So for me, I took a look, obviously, is this the right persona? So the right title. And once we know that, okay, perfect. Is it the right size of company, right? Is it the right, do they have the right number, sorry, the right amount of revenue? Because there's a certain revenue size that we want to target, make sure they can afford to proceed.
Mhm.
Then what do they offer? Is this something that I think is cool to, because at the end of the day, you want to be excited when you pitch it to a prospect, right? Like if you're selling, let's say, I don't know, eyeglasses, right? Like how excited can you get about eyeglasses to somebody? But
Yeah.
but if you're selling like a Ferrari to somebody and you're a car guy or car gal and you know that industry, cars inside, outside, left side, right side, like the whole gambit of it, how much more likely are you going to be in getting a meeting with somebody?
Yeah. The
So,
passion does have a
so I
thing
look
come
for
through.
that. Yeah. And then next is just do some like preliminary search on LinkedIn. Are they active on LinkedIn? Because a part of my cadence and sequences are includes LinkedIn, but not everyone is active on there. So I want to see, okay, you're active on LinkedIn. Do we have anyone common that if I reach out to you on LinkedIn that I can reference? Are we a part of any groups, any Slack communities, etc.? And
Interesting. So
then
it's like a common reach out, a touch point there. What do you think about those sequences? Because sometimes I get those spam sequences and it's like never ending and they're really bad copy. And it's not, it's, I know it's just like an automation. What's your take on that?
yeah, so when I'm doing sequences, I don't use a lot of automation. So
Interesting.
it's more one to one, right? So taking the time, okay, going on LinkedIn, checking you out, your profile out. Is there anything there I can reference? And then send you an invite or a message referencing whatever it was that I found. And the same for an email. Whereas most sequences, it's copy and paste one message, one
Hey,
template
first
message.
name, how is city
Say first
looking?
name. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. No one cares about that crap.
So you go
Um,
really custom on the front end, which I think me myself, I'm seeing like a lot higher response rates because of the custom. It definitely takes longer, but
yes,
there's a higher response rate. But then you don't just hit them on LinkedIn. I know email's a hot pot, but how else do you think about strategy?
definitely incorporate the phone, dropping that list into phones. And depending on, so a good friend of mine who's in the space as well, he's got a ton of data on this. And he says if someone hasn't picked up the phone by your fifth attempt, the phone's probably not their main channel or not active to engage on the phone. So
Hmm,
focus on some other channels. So I want to at least hit the person 5 times on the phone.
interesting. Okay.
Uh, Depending on the industry, like if it's a, because I used to be in the IT security space and IT folks are extremely difficult to get on the phone. So if I was doing a campaign for cybersecurity, cloud computing, something along that nature,
Mhm.
I'd probably go a lot longer just because my past experience, I know, hey, these folks are insanely difficult to get on the phone.
Interesting. So you're doing a multi-toucher, but do you centralize that? Do you use like outreach or where do you centralize all those touches?
It's all in Apollo. So
Oh,
Apollo
okay.
is a sales engagement that includes data. So you can build your list in Apollo, then you can email, you create sequence, call from it.
Wow.
You can do your LinkedIn from there. So it's all one single sheet of glass.
What do you say to people? Because I know that the name of the game is the volume, the numbers game. There's a
Yep.
certain convert. If I hit the phone 5 times, they're most likely to show up on the phone. If not, then I don't focus on that. But what do you tell people like when they hit a wall? Because I feel like a lot of SDRs, a lot of approach here can be disheartening. There's a lot of more no's than there is yeses. What do you do to overcome that? And what do you tell others to overcome that?
That's a very good question because it happens to all of us, right? Like I've been there before myself. For me, what I'll do is sometimes is if I'm on a particular campaign and I'm not getting a lot of success, I'll switch it up. I'll I'll create a different campaign and start somewhere else and just maybe different persona, entirely different industry. Maybe just if I feel I'm not confident with the phone right now, like I'm tired or whatever the case might be, I just don't feel that confident on the phone today.
Hmm.
And I won't use the phone. I'll use email or I'll use LinkedIn
Hmm.
and just like really focus on okay. I know it can sound cliche, but like just focus in on okay, why do I want to send this to this person?
Hmm.
And just be like truly feel like you can help and add some sort of value to this individual. And don't think of it like, okay, I got to get a meeting. I got to get a meeting. I got to book this today, or I'm not
Yeah.
going to have anything on the board for the week. Because I've been there in the past. And when you are putting such insane pressure on yourself when you do that,
Hmm.
and it just, for me, it used to snowball from, okay, I'm not getting a meeting. I'm not getting a meeting. I'm getting a no. And then it just spiraled to, okay, sucks. So I'm not getting anything. I don't want to prospect. I don't want to call, email, what have you. And when you do get somebody on the conversation, like on the other end of the conversation, whether it's phone, email, LinkedIn, whatever, you're not as confident and they feel that lack of confidence. And it's like
The energy.
you've just lost a potential opportunity, right? So it is challenging, but if you're athletic, you like working out, you like to play video games, like whatever your outlet is, go and do that. Just take your mind away from it a little bit and then come back. And as simple as it is, you'd be surprised on like how that just kind of puts you in a different frame of mind.
I love that. Being able to know yourself, know the intention, but then also show up with the energy that you know it's that the other person's going to feel because it does rub off. And I've seen that in myself too. Like some of the calls, I may not be 100%, but I try to push through. But it's smart to be able to recharge. I think that's a key.
Well,
That's a key lesson to the recharging.
and you got to think of it from that person's perspective, right? Like you've just interrupted them. Now you're going to follow up with, hey, Raul, it's Martin calling
You'd be shy,
today.
right?
You'd be like, go away. Why are you bothering me? Whereas if you come in full of energy and be like, hey, how's it going today? Glad we were able to connect finally. Something like following up to an email I sent you last week, blah, blah, blah. It's just a totally different energy.
Yeah, the different approach. Martin, for all of our listeners out there, was the best place for people to go to one, thank you for being on and learn a little bit more about what you're up to.
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn under the Outbound Sales Guy. That's my LinkedIn handle, hashtag, whatever you want to call it. That's how you can find me. And I may be a little slow to get back to you because it seems every day there's more and more messages and invites and stuff, but definitely will get back to you.
Awesome. So I'll put that link in the show notes. Martin, thanks for being on, man.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
If you found value in today's podcast, please consider sharing this with someone that you believe could also benefit from this episode. You never know, you may be the catalyst that opens them up to a new way of operating their business and experiencing life. As always, it's an honor to be a small part of your journey. This is Raul Hernandez. Do good work.